Hello 11th graders and welcome to this lecture which will be talking about an expository writing sample related to the theme of war and revolution and mainly about child soldiers. Now let's begin with the quote for the prompt. In countries where wars are raging, a major vulnerable group is children who are recruited as soldiers. Vulnerable means weak. In a well-organized expository essay, talk about three major reasons why it is easy to target children and recruit them as soldiers in developing countries where there are active war zones. Support your ideas with real-life examples. Guys, if you still haven't watched the video about the lesson of child soldiers from your reading book, please do that before you go through with this other video about the case study essay, because it has a lot of information about this issue. Now, I chose the title Factors That Help in Recruiting Child Soldiers. Recruiting, you recruit someone, you make them work for you. A child soldier is a human being less than 18 years old, recruited by an army or simply participating in an armed conflict. This phenomenon is prevalent in war zones in countries such as Yemen in Asia and Sudan in Africa. The International Convention on the Rights of the Child fixes 18 as the age of adulthood. So any person who is recruited at the age less than 18 is considered a child, okay? Because this is written in the International Convention on the Rights of the Children. So therefore, according to international law, recruiting a person under 18 is considered an international crime. So this was my hook, my background information about the topic, and finally my thesis, which is reasons why it is so easy to recruit children in developing countries or in active war zones in developing countries, recruit them as child soldiers. Yet it is easy to recruit children as soldiers in some countries due to several factors. So obviously in my thesis statement, I'm going to be talking about those factors. My topic sentence, which is from here to here, is what this whole paragraph will be talking about, which is definitely one of the factors. To begin with, I usually start with the transitional signal to make my essay coherent. To begin with, a child under 18 is generally more obedient, manageable, and easily manipulated, especially when there are no clear laws to protect them. So this is one reason why it is so easy to recruit children. In developing countries where the government is not protecting them and they are manageable, they're obedient, they would do what this armed group wants, it's easy to recruit them. At this age, a person is not mature enough to understand his or her basic rights as humans, especially in developing countries with active war zones. A child soldier does not necessarily wear a uniform or carry a weapon. He can be recruited, or he or she can be recruited into an armed group as a cook, carrier, guard, spy, messenger, bodyguard, mine detector, sent into active mines to see whether there is a mine or not, and so on. Because children could be vulnerable, naive, very innocent, or do not yet fully understand the dangerous situation they are in and do not have clear lines between what is okay and what is not. Colombi, a boy, of course here I gave my idea and I want to support it with an example. I want to illustrate, I want to elaborate. So I wrote the example, the real life example of Colombi to make my essay more credible. A boy who was recruited by a paramilitary group in Rwanda. Paramilitary, it means it's not the official army of that country, the different groups, okay? Paramilitary group in Rwanda, a country in Africa with a huge conflict. At age seven, was asked to shoot his best friend because he was now part of the enemy group. he did it. Of course, he didn't shoot him when he was 7. He was recruited by the army when he was 7, but he was brainwashed later on. Many ideas were put in his head about who's the enemy and who is not, and he shot his best friend because now his best friend was not working for this paramilitary group or its ideals. Now, another reason why it is easy to recruit children as soldiers is poverty, of course. So I'm going to talk about how poverty makes it easier to recruit children as soldiers. Military groups would specifically target destitute villages. Destitute means extremely poor, and areas with large concentration of children. Some parents who have several starving children, starving, very hungry, might be willing to give up a child for a bag of flour and some groceries in some hunger-stricken areas. This situation is ideal for many military groups who find children to be great assets. Finally, final reason in my essay, moreover, a young adult or teenager would leave his family if he were promised some money and an adventurous lifestyle along with other pleasures. Okay, remember, this is a youth. You know, you say some words to him, you know, you're going to be an adventurer, you're fighting for a great cause, you're going to have whatever you want, you're going to be armed, you will feel powerful and independent. This stuff sometimes goes into the minds of the youth, and they would willingly, not by force, many times willingly join this military group. This was what happened with Tembe, who was recruited at 16. Okay, teenager. Now, after the conflict has ended, he finds himself with 2 amputated legs. His legs were cut off. After he was asked to go into a minefield to check whether it was safe. Of course, the mine blew in his face. Unfortunately, he did not experience any of the dreams, quote unquote, he was promised. He now lives in a permanent shelter run by the UN in Sudan. So, I gave 3 reasons why it is easy to recruit children in developing countries with active war zones. Of course, there are several others, but I asked you for major reasons, and we have 5 paragraph essays, so you will write 3 reasons along with the introduction and the conclusion. Finally, my conclusion, reiterating what I said in the introduction and leaving my reader with a final thought, feelings, opinion, advice, etc. The phenomenon of child soldiering is quite prevalent, meaning quite widespread. This issue is very complex and yet has not received the attention it should have gotten from the public. NGOs and the United Nations are working in war zones where this problem is dominant. They are providing shelters and support for some children escaping this nightmare. However, their powers and reach are quite limited in those areas. A lot still needs to be done to help this vulnerable group that seems to be a major victim during times of war. Of course, by vulnerable group, I am referring to children under 18. So this is it for our essay. We will further discuss this either on Zoom Live or in one of my office hours. So hope to hear from you soon and take care. Bye.